Thank you for joining me for this month's virtual Curators tour. I'm Jenna Gilley, Associate Curator of Exhibitions at the Fort Wayne Museum of Art, and I'll be your tour guide. Today we will be exploring fantastic realms, myth, magic, and folklore, curated by me and supported by the Edward D. and Ione R. Foundation. Artists have long visualized and created imagined lands. From ancient mythology to contemporary video games, humans are enraptured by what lies outside our everyday reality, including alternate realms and the characters who inhabit them. Fantasy, in its Greek origin of meaning, simply means making visible what is in an artist's mind. Its grounding in reality, retained by employing recognizable earthly forms as protagonists, is necessary for believability. Fantastic Realms focuses on how fantastic art, rooted in myth, magic, and folklore, expands our horizons beyond reality to find meaning in our own world. Those who dismiss it as mere child's play overlook the genre's historical importance as a teaching tool, cultural connector, and source of escapism. Through works in the museum's permanent collection, visitors will encounter favorite Western literary characters and creatures, inhabitants from lesser-known global stories and folklore, and simply surreal worlds. We invite you to suspend your disbelief and enter these fantastic realms, both big and small. First on our tour is an image by photographer Kirsty Mitchell, which welcomes viewers to the exhibition. A woman covered in flowers opens an ornate door with a key. The mist that exudes from the bottom conveys the idea of stepping into a mystical world. I chose to place this picture near the gallery's entrance because I wanted visitors to feel excited to be transported into the fantasy of the exhibition, which this photo's large size helps do. Kirsty Mitchell's earliest memories are reading fairy tales with her mother, who passed away in 2008. To cope, Mitchell quit her job in fashion and launched herself into a 5.5-year photography project titled Wonderland, which this photo is a part of. Tapping into the therapeutic escapism that fantasy can provide, Mitchell painstakingly created every costume, prop, and set. Some pieces took up to 5 months to build and over a year to plan, as Mitchell coincided her sessions with the bloom of wildflowers and the seasonal extremes of her local environment. Together, Mitchell's scenes are reminiscent of existing fairy tales, but ultimately are born from her own dreams and altered reality. Now that we have entered into Wonderland, so to speak, we encounter our second work, also giant in size, which features a character that many viewers may recognize. Here we have Alice from Lewis Carroll's famous fantasy children's book, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, who is swimming in a body of water. This is the scene after a shrunken Alice has fallen into her pool of tears, which she cried when she was 9 feet tall. A horde of animals, including, quote, a duck and a dodo, a lory and an eaglet, and several other curious creatures, trail behind Alice's wake, desperate to get to shore. This print was created by contemporary artist Kiki Smith, whose work often addresses the human condition in its relationship to nature and gender, specifically from a feminist angle. In her recent work, Smith has often turned to fairy tales in search of dramatic female persona and alter egos. The poignant vulnerability of childhood is an underlying theme in many of her images like this one, based on Lewis Carroll's manuscript drawings. The tension between the sickly, weak look of the young Alice and the eerie, charging animals pervades this scene. In order to represent the animals close to life size, Smith drew on the largest copper plate ULAE's etching press could accommodate. Positioning it on the dining table of her New York home, she often sat on one part of the printing plate while she freehand drew on the other. The movement of her body leaving linear marks scattered across the sky of the composition. She chose to retain this stray evidence of her process and later added watercolor directly to the wove paper, details that emulate the worn hand coloring of many Victorian prints, which was the era that Alice's Adventures in Wonderland was produced. Our next work also carries literary references and a bird, although much smaller and more friendly. This humble traveler is a Netsuke, or carved small fastener, used since the 17th century to hold pockets onto kimono sashes, or obi, in Japan. When first developed, Netsuke were very simple bits of wood or root. Over time, however, they developed into symbolic objects, referencing the owner's interests or travels. This example is emblematic of the hero's journey, a narrative structure commonly found in myth which includes a protagonist answering a call to adventure, facing a decisive crisis, and returning as a changed person. Pack secured in bamboo stick freshly cut for stability, he raises his face bravely upward, ready to tackle whatever challenges await him. The resting bird on his hand emphasizes the piece's fantastical nature, like a Disney princess cheerfully walking in the woods. Next is a creature a traveler hopefully did not encounter on his adventure. Standing over 6 feet tall, this imposing sculpture features a sand-cast glass head with metal antennas and a neutral expression on a tall steel base. Inclusions of human figures and an upside-down blue head seen in the work's profile create a dreamy mood. This work was inspired by the incredible story of Carolina Olsen, who, if the stories are true, was a real-life Sleeping Beauty. In 1876, at the age of 14, Olsen returned to her house on the island of Okno, Sweden, complaining of a splitting headache after a fall on the ice. Her mother, who like many Swedes was superstitious, decided that this was the work of witches and sent her daughter to bed. Carolina did not wake for another 32 years. Fellow Swede Bertil Vallien was entranced by her story, making this work and many others. Inspired by folklore, dreams, and the journey through life, the image of a looming male head is frequently used in Vallien's work, a motif seen by Katarina throughout her long sleep, and a reference to Janus, the god of gates and time in Roman mythology. Our final work by Dwayne Slick looks at myth from a different perspective. While it may appear simple, Memories of Childhood Grandpa Fire includes both classic and contemporary Native American tales. Coyote, a common trickster in Native lore, serves as a teaching aid of valuable life lessons. Here he is rendered dancing beneath a single star. In a Cheyenne story, Coyote learns about the dangers of being conceited when he believes he can dance among the stars. While playful, Slick's work carries a darker undertone. Coyote's flattened figure resembles a splayed body at a crime scene here in this print. His star, an Indian star quilt pattern made of spliced coyote heads, was made by Native women as a substitution for warm animal skins after their husbands were forcibly barred from leaving their reservation to hunt in the late 19th century. Together, this piece acknowledges the attempted systematic destruction of America's Native culture and people, while simultaneously warning of what could happen if customs and stories like these are lost. Thank you for joining me for this virtual Curators tour. If this talk has inspired you, I encourage you to visit Fantastic Realms, Myth, Magic, and Folklore in person to see many other fantastic works from our permanent collection before it closes on July 7th.